The market was full of voices, sellers shouting prices, children running, carts rolling over stone roads. But in the middle of that noisy place, 3 alien widows walked silently. Their eyes looked tired, their clothes were old, and their hands trembled as they held small baskets with nothing inside. People moved away when they passed. Whispers followed them like shadows. "Bad luck," someone said in a low voice. "Do not look at them. They bring death," another added. The widows kept walking, heads bowed as if the ground was safer than the people around them. Each widow carried her own pain. One had lost her husband in the war when the human soldiers destroyed their colony. Another's husband had died of sickness, too poor to buy medicine. The third widow had seen her husband taken away by soldiers, never to return. Their stories were different, but their pain was the same. They were hungry. Their children waited in a small broken hut outside the town, waiting for food. The widows came every day to the market, hoping for work, even the smallest job, but no one wanted to give them a chance. A human woman selling bread shouted when they came close, "Go away, I cannot sell if you stand near me." She pulled her basket back as if their touch was poison. Another man selling fruit said, "Even if you worked for free, I would not let you touch my goods." The youngest widow, with trembling lips, whispered, "Please, just give us something to do. We do not ask for charity, only a job." But the man turned his face away, pretending he did not hear. Tears filled her eyes. She wiped them quickly. She remembered her children's empty stomachs. She thought of their weak voices asking, "Mother, will you bring food today?" Her heart broke. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The oldest widow pulled the younger one's hand. "Do not beg them, begging makes them laugh," she whispered. Her voice was cold, full of years of pain. She had begged before, and people had thrown stones at her. The 3 women walked to the end of the market where shadows grew longer. People's laughter and noise sounded far away. For a moment, silence wrapped around them. The widows sat on the ground, close to each other, hugging their knees. Their eyes were empty, their bodies tired, their hearts heavy. They wondered how long they could survive like this, without work, without help, without hope. The world seemed to push them deeper into darkness every day. The middle widow looked at the bow. "Sky," her voice soft. "Why does no one see that we are alive? We breathe, we feel, we hurt, but to them we are nothing." Her words hung in the air, heavy like stone. The marketplace lights flickered as evening approached. Sellers packed their goods. People went home with full baskets. Laughter rose in the air. But for the 3 widows, the world was empty. They stood again, their steps slow, their stomachs empty. They would return to their children with nothing. They thought maybe tomorrow would be better. But deep inside, they feared tomorrow would be worse. As they walked past the last row of shops, one of them noticed something strange. A pair of eyes watching them. A man stood in the shadow between 2 stalls. He did not laugh, he did not curse. He only watched. His gaze followed them quietly. The widows felt uneasy. Who was this man? Another cruel soul ready to mock them? Or someone more dangerous? Their hearts beat fast. They turned their faces away, but they could still feel his eyes. The youngest widow whispered, "Do not look back. Just walk." The others nodded. They quickened their steps, but the feeling of being followed grew stronger. The man did not move closer, but he did not turn away either. He stood like a statue, his figure half hidden in the shadow. His eyes carried something the widows could not read. Was it pity? Was it interest, or something darker? Fear and hope battled inside their hearts. For years, no one had looked at them with anything but hate. But this human was different. His silence was louder than the crowd's cruel words. As the widows reached the end of the road leading out of the market, they glanced back once more. The man was still there, still watching, his face hidden in the falling dusk. The widows walked faster, their minds full of questions. Their hearts heavy with fear. They wanted to forget him, but they could not. Something about his gaze stayed with them. When they reached their hut, their children ran to them. "Mother, did you bring food?" The small voices asked. The widows looked down, ashamed. Their hands were empty, Their hearts broke again. They hugged their children tightly, hiding tears in their shoulders. Outside, the night was silent, but far away, in the dark streets of the market, that same human man still stood, still watching the road where they had walked. His eyes glowed faintly in the lantern light. The widows did not know yet, but their lives were about to change forever. The next morning, the marketplace was alive again. The smell of baked bread filled the air. Merchants shouted prices, children laughed and chased each other. Life moved fast for everyone, but not for the three alien widows. For them, every day was the same struggle. They walked again through the crowd, their eyes low, their voices silent. Their children had eaten only a little broth last night. Today, they had nothing. Hunger was like fire in their stomachs. But shame burned hotter. As they passed a fruit stall, the seller waved them away. "Move, you scare my customers," he said. His words stabbed like knives. They turned quickly, swallowing tears. They had heard these words too many times. The youngest widow whispered, "Maybe we should stop coming here. Maybe we should search in another town." The oldest one shook her head slowly. "If no one wants us here, no one will want us anywhere." But as they turned to leave, they saw the same man from yesterday. He was standing not far, near a wall. His clothes were simple, his face half hidden under a hood, but his eyes were clear, steady, watching them again. The widows froze. Their hearts raced. Fear wrapped around them. Was he following them? Did he want to hurt them? The middle widow whispered, "Ignore him, keep walking." But the man stepped forward. His boots touched the stone road. His shadow fell over them. The widows tightened their baskets in fear. One of them pulled the youngest child closer, ready to run. But the man did not raise his hand. He did not curse. He only said in a calm voice, "Wait." The word cut through the noise of the market like thunder. The widows stopped, but their bodies shook. They expected insults. They expected mockery. Instead, the man reached into his bag and pulled out bread, 3 small loaves, warm and fresh. He stretched his hand toward them. "Take this," he said. The youngest widow looked at the bread. Her lips trembled. Her children's faces flashed in her mind. She wanted to grab it, but her pride held her back. "We cannot take gifts," she whispered. "People will laugh." The man's voice grew firm. "It is not a gift. It is payment." The widows exchanged confused glances. "Payment?" the oldest one asked, her voice full of disbelief. "Yes," the man said, his eyes sharp but kind. "I want to hire you. I have work. If you agree, you will earn food and coins, not charity." The words hung heavy in the air. For a moment, the noise of the market faded. The widows stared at him, trying to see if this was a cruel trick. Many times before, men had lured them with false promises only to humiliate them. The middle widow narrowed her eyes. "Why us? Why not hire someone
Else? Anyone else?"
The man looked at her without blinking. His voice was low but strong. "Because everyone else turned away, because you need this chance more than they do. Because I know what it is to be alone." Something in his words pierced their hearts. His tone carried truth, not pity. For the first time in years, someone was speaking to them, not at them. Still, doubt filled their minds. "What if this is a trap?" The youngest whispered to the others. "What if he takes us away and we never return?" The oldest widow's face was hard. She stepped forward, meeting the man's gaze. "If you lie to us, our children will die. Do you understand that?" The man nodded slowly. "I understand." His hand still held the bread, steady, patient. He did not pull back. He did not force. He simply waited. The widows' hearts beat fast. The crowd around them began to notice. Some laughed. "Look at the fool. He wants to hire the cursed widows." Others whispered, "He will regret this." Shame pressed heavy on their shoulders, but hope whispered inside. Hope they had buried long ago. Finally, the youngest widow reached out. Her fingers touched the bread. She pulled it close. Tears filled her eyes. The man gave the other 2 loaves as well. His voice calm. "Meet me at the south road after sunset. I will show you the work." The widows clutched the bread. Their hands shook. Their hearts were torn between fear and hope. They nodded slowly, not trusting their voices, as the man walked. Away, the crowd muttered behind him. He is mad. He will lose everything. The widows will bring ruin. But he did not answer. He moved through the market like a shadow. The widows stood there, holding bread like it was treasure. For their children, this meant survival. For themselves, it meant a chance they had never been given. When they returned to their hut that evening, their children's eyes lit up at the sight of food. The small hands grabbed the bread, biting quickly, joy filling their faces. The widows watched with tears rolling down their cheeks, but inside, fear still lived. Who was this man? Why had he chosen them? What kind of work was waiting on the South Road? As the sun sank and the sky turned red, the widows sat silently, there, children asleep beside them. In the distance, the sound of the town faded and the shadow of night grew deeper. One thing was certain, their lives were about to change forever. But whether it was for good or for ruin, they did not yet know. The night air was cool. The moonlight touched the dirt road with silver light. The three alien widows walked slowly, their hearts heavy with fear and hope mixed together. Behind them, the town was quiet. Only a few lights glowed in the distance. Ahead of them waited the unknown. The youngest widow clutched her shawl tightly, whispering, "What if he tricks us? What if we never return?" The oldest one answered in a firm voice, "If we do nothing, our children will starve. Sometimes danger is the only road to hope." At the South Road, they saw him. The man stood near a wooden cart, his hood down this time. His face was sharp, but calm, his eyes steady. He looked more human than they had imagined, yet something in his gaze carried deep loneliness. "You came," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. The widows nodded slowly, fear still in their hearts. He pointed to the cart. "I own land outside the town. No one wants to help me. I need workers, strong hands, loyal hearts." He looked at them one by one. "If you work for me, you will have food and coins for your children. I do not give charity, I give work." The widows exchanged glances. Their minds raced. Was this real? Could it be true? Or was it just another cruel trap? The middle widow asked sharply, "Why us? You know everyone believes we are cursed. If you hire us, they will hate you too." The man gave a short laugh without humor. "They already hate me. I do not care what they think." He leaned closer, his voice lower. "I care about what is right." For a moment, silence covered them. The widows felt something shift inside. His words sounded true, but their hearts were full of old wounds. The youngest one whispered, "What kind of work?" He answered, "I grow crops, I raise animals. It is honest, simple work, but it is hard. You will get tired, your hands will hurt, but you will never go hungry again." The oldest widow's voice cracked as she spoke. "We do not fear pain. We only fear hunger." He nodded slowly. "Then come with me tomorrow at dawn, I will show you the fields." As he turned to leave, a group of men appeared from the shadows, villagers with angry eyes and cruel smiles. One of them shouted, "Look at this fool, he wants to take the cursed widows to his home." Another laughed harshly. "He is bringing death to himself and to us all." The widows froze, their bodies shaking. The youngest hid her face in fear. The crowd grew, voices rising with hate. "Throw them out. Do not let them work. They will ruin us." The man stepped in front of the widows, his body like a shield. His voice rang loud. "Enough." The crowd went silent for a moment, shocked by his courage. He pointed at them. "You call yourselves human, but you treat them worse than animals. If you do not want them, then good. They are mine now." Gasps filled the air. The villagers muttered in anger, but none dared step closer. His eyes burned with a fire they had never seen before. Finally, the men pulled back, grumbling, spitting. On the ground, "He will regret this, he will learn soon enough," they said as they walked away. Their shadows melted into the night. The widows stood behind him, trembling. They could not believe what had just happened. No one had ever defended them. No one had ever stood against the crowd for their sake. The man turned back to them, his voice softer now. "Do not fear. As long as you are under my roof, no one will touch you." The widows' eyes filled with tears. Their voices failed. They could only nod. Their hearts, long frozen in pain, felt a spark of warmth that night. They returned to their hut. Their children slept peacefully, unaware of what had happened. The widows lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling, their minds full of questions. Who was this man? Why did he choose them? What price would they have to pay? Morning came quickly. The widows gathered their courage. They walked to the south road again. The man waited with his cart. He led them beyond the town, through quiet paths lined with tall trees, until the land opened wide. Before them stretched fields of earth, untended, waiting for hands to bring them to life. A small farmhouse stood nearby, old but strong. Chickens ran across the yard, a dog barked. The widows felt the air here was different, calmer, freer. "This is my land," the man said, "and if you choose, it will be your land too." The widows looked at each other. Their hearts beat fast. It felt unreal, like a dream, but dreams were dangerous. Dreams often ended in pain. The man showed them the barn, the animals, the tools, his voice steady. "If you work hard, you will eat. If you stay loyal, I will protect. You, I ask for nothing else." As the sun rose higher, the widows began to work. Their hands touched the earth. Their bodies bent in labor. Sweat ran down their faces. But for the first time, hunger did not press so hard. They worked not for pity, but for hope. Yet as evening fell and shadows stretched long, the youngest widow saw movement near the trees, dark shapes, silent, watching. Her heart skipped. She whispered to the others. But when they turned, the figures were gone. Fear crept back into their bones. Maybe the villagers were planning something. Maybe worse dangers still hunted them. And in the quiet of that night, as the widows lay in their small new room, they could not shake the feeling that someone was watching, waiting. The widows worked, hard in the man's fields. Day after day their hands turned the soil, planted seeds, carried water, and fed the animals. Their children laughed again, chasing chickens, tasting bread every night. For the first time in years they had food. They had shelter, they had a place where no one spat at them, but peace is never without a price. The villagers watched from afar, whispering in anger. "The widows live in his house now," one man said with hate in his voice. "He feeds them, he trusts them, soon they will destroy him." Another woman added. Rumors spread like fire. Every lie grew bigger than the last. "They are cursed," the people said. "They bring death. Their husbands died because they are unlucky. They will poison the land." The widows heard the whispers when they walked through the town. Some people threw stones at their feet. Others slammed doors. Their hearts hurt, but they tried to stay strong. They remembered the man's words. "As long as you are under my roof, no one will touch you." Still, doubt lived inside them. Could he truly protect them forever? One evening, the youngest widow walked near the edge of the fields. She carried water for the animals. The wind was soft, but something made her stop. Her skin shivered. In the shadows of the trees, she saw figures again, standing still, watching. Her breath caught. She whispered, "Who is there?" No answer came, only the rustle of leaves. When she blinked, the figures were gone. She ran back to the house, her voice shaky. "I saw them again. Someone is watching us." The others exchanged worried glances. The oldest widow frowned. "It may be the villagers." But the middle widow shook her head. "No, villagers throw stones, they shout, they do not hide, this is different." That night the widows could not sleep. The children snored softly beside them, but the mothers lay awake, listening to every sound outside, every creak of wood, every howl of the dog made their hearts race. The man noticed at dawn. He asked firmly, "What troubles you?" They hesitated, afraid to burden him, but finally the youngest whispered, "There are eyes in the trees watching us." The man's expression darkened. His jaw tightened. "I will take care of it," he said. His voice left no room for questions. That day he worked with them in the fields, his axe sharp, his eyes scanning the woods again and again. The widows felt safer when he was near, but fear still lived inside. Then something happened. A child from the village, curious and bold, came running across the road. He stopped at the fence, staring at the widows with wide eyes. "My father says you are cursed," he said. "Is it true?" The youngest widow's lips trembled. She wanted to cry, but instead she bent down and smiled sadly. "No, little one. We are not cursed. We are only mothers." The boy frowned, confused. Then his father appeared, grabbing him by the arm. His eyes shot daggers at the widows. "Stay away from him," he hissed, pulling the child back. "You will not poison my son." The man who hired them stepped forward. His voice was like thunder. "Enough, if you come to my land to insult them. Again you will regret it." The villager spat on the ground. "You protect them now, but when the curse falls, you will regret it yourself." He left with his child, but the hatred in his eyes promised danger. The widows felt their stomachs twist. They were no strangers to hate. But now the man had made himself a target too. That night, the middle widow woke to a sound, a faint crack outside the window. She froze, listening. A shadow moved near the barn. Her heart pounded. She touched the oldest widow's shoulder, whispering, "Wake up, someone is out there." They peered through the cracks. Dark figures crept near the animals, torches in hand. One whispered, "Burn it. Burn their shelter. Then they will leave." The widows gasped silently. Fear turned their veins to ice. If the barn burned, all food, all animals, all safety would be gone. Their children would starve again. The man appeared suddenly, axe in hand. His voice cut the night. "Stop." The torches froze in the men's hands. They turned, eyes wide, but then their faces twisted into anger. "You protect them?" One hissed. "They are not worth it. They are death-walking." Another raised his torch. "Move aside or we burn it all." The widows clutched each other, trembling. The children stirred in their sleep, unaware of the danger outside. The man stood tall, his axe glinting in the firelight. "If you want to burn something, burn me first." His voice was steady, fearless. The villagers hesitated. Their courage cracked under his gaze. One by one they lowered their torches, muttering, "This is not over." Then they disappeared into the night, leaving only smoke behind. The widows ran outside, their feet bare on the cold ground. Tears ran down their faces. They fell to their knees. "You saved us again," they whispered. The man's face was grim. "It is not enough. They will return. Stronger." He looked toward the trees, his eyes sharp. "And those shadows you saw, they may not be villagers." The widow's blood ran cold. If not villagers, then who? The night grew heavier. The stars above seemed to watch in silence, and in the distance, deep among the dark woods, unseen eyes glowed faintly. The widows shivered. For the first time they wondered. Maybe the enemy from their past war had found them at last. The days passed with tension heavy in the air. The widows worked harder than ever, their hands blistered, their backs sore. They wanted to prove their worth. They wanted the man to see that they were not a curse, but a blessing. Yet whispers in the village grew louder, and shadows in the woods grew darker. The man kept watch at night, axe always near, his eyes sharp. Never trusting the silence, he knew danger was building, but he did not yet know from where. One evening, as the widows cleaned the barn, the youngest dropped a cloth and reached under a wooden box. Her fingers brushed something cold. She pulled it out quickly and gasped. It was a small metal case hidden beneath the hay. The other widows rushed close. "What is it?" The middle one whispered. The youngest opened it with shaking hands. Inside lay a strange piece of technology, alien in design, glowing faintly with blue light. The oldest widow's face turned pale. "I know this. It belonged to the soldiers, who came for us in the war. We were supposed to destroy it, but..." Her voice cracked. "One of us kept it." The youngest trembled. "I could not let it go. It is the last thing my husband touched before he died, I thought. Maybe one day it would help us." Silence filled the barn. The truth hung heavy in the air. This was no simple relic. It was a war device, and if the wrong eyes saw it, danger would come crashing down on them all, before they could hide it again. The man appeared at the door. His eyes fell on the glowing case, his face darkened. He stepped forward slowly. "What is that?" The widows froze, their lips trembled, they could not speak. Finally, the youngest whispered, "It is from the war. We never meant to lie. We just could not let it go." The man's voice was hard. "You brought this into my home. Do you know what this means? If the villagers discover it, they will kill you, and me with you." Tears rolled down their cheeks. The middle widow fell to her knees. "Please, do not send us away. We kept it hidden. We never wanted to harm you. We only wanted to survive." The man's hands tightened around the axe. His heart battled inside. He had taken them in when no one else would. He had defended them against the crowd. But now he wondered, had he been wrong? Were they truly cursed, bringing danger with them wherever they went? The oldest widow stepped forward, her voice steady, though her eyes shone with tears. "If you wish us gone, say the word. But remember, our children will die without this roof, without this land, without your protection." Her words stabbed him deeper than any blade. He turned away, his jaw tight. The weight of choice crushed him. That night he sat alone outside, staring at the stars. His mind stormed. He remembered his own past, how his family had cast him out, how he had lived alone for years, unwanted, hated. Now he had opened his door to others like him, but with them came danger he had not asked for. He closed his eyes, whispering, "Do I protect them, or do I protect myself?" Inside the house, the widows wept silently. They held their children close, not knowing if tomorrow they would still have shelter, or be thrown back into the cold streets. The next morning, the villagers came again. Their leader shouted at the fence. "We saw strangers near the woods. Tell us, are you hiding something? Are those cursed widows hiding secrets?" The man stepped forward, his face calm, though his chest burned. "They work for me, that is all you need to know." But the villagers did not believe. "We will search your land," one demanded. His eyes sharp with suspicion. The man's axe gleamed in the sun. "No, you will not." His voice carried iron. The villagers hesitated, but their eyes promised they would return, stronger and angrier. When the crowd left, the man turned to the widows. His eyes met the youngest. "Tell me everything now," her voice cracked as she explained. "My husband died trying to protect this device. He believed it contained proof that the war was built on lies. If anyone powerful sees it, they will hunt us. They already are. That is why shadows follow us." The man's breath grew heavy. Suddenly the pieces fit. The figures in the trees, the attempts to burn the barn, the whispers. It was not only villagers' hate, it was something larger, something darker. The widow's eyes filled with fear. "If you tell us to leave, we will go. We will not fight you." He stared at them for a long moment. His mind screamed to push them away, to save himself. But his heart remembered their tears, their children's laughter, the way they worked hard without complaint. Finally he spoke, his voice low but firm. "You should have told me. You put us all in danger, but I will not hand you over. I will protect you, even if it costs me everything." The widows cried, falling at his feet. "We will never betray your trust again. We swear it." But even as they wept with relief, the man's eyes turned toward the woods. He could feel it. Danger was moving closer, stronger. The enemy had not yet revealed itself, but soon it would. And when it came, loyalty would be tested in blood. The days that followed were heavy with silence. The widows worked in the fields, but their eyes often turned toward the woods. The man sharpened his axe every night, his ears awake for the smallest sound. The children laughed less, sensing the fear their mothers tried to hide. Danger was close. They all felt it. One night, the dog barked wildly. The man rushed outside, torch in hand. His eyes caught movement between the trees, dark shapes gliding silently. Not villagers, not friends. He raised his voice. "Show yourself." From the shadows stepped tall figures, armored, their weapons glowing faintly. Their helmets reflected the torchlight. Alien soldiers, hunters from the old war. The widows gasped when they saw them, their hearts dropped. The leader of the soldiers spoke, his voice metallic. "You have something that belongs to us. Hand over the widows and the device, and we will spare you." The man's grip tightened on his axe. "They are under my roof, you will not take them." His voice was steady, but inside his heart thundered. He knew he was one man against many. The oldest widow stepped forward, her face pale but strong. "They followed us. They want the proof we carry. If they take it, the truth of the war dies with us." The youngest widow clutched the glowing case, close to her chest, tears in her eyes. "Please do not fight for us, you will die." But the man shook his head. "Better to die with honor than live in silence while others suffer." The soldiers raised their weapons, and the night exploded. Arrows of light flew across the yard. The man swung his axe, striking one soldier. To the ground, the widows screamed but did not run. Instead, they grabbed stones, sticks, anything they could find. The children hid inside, crying. Their mothers shouted, "Stay down, do not move." The battle raged. The barn caught fire, flames licking the night sky. The chickens scattered in terror. The dog leapt at a soldier, biting hard before being thrown aside. The man fought with fury, every strike fueled by his promise to protect. But the soldiers were many, and his arms grew heavy, blood running down his side. The widows joined him, throwing rocks, stabbing with tools. Their hands bled, their bodies shook, but they refused to hide. Then, in the middle of the chaos, the youngest widow screamed. A soldier had grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the woods. The case fell from her hands, glowing bright on the ground. The middle widow leapt forward, tackling the soldier. They fell hard. She clawed at his helmet, her cries sharp and desperate. Another soldier struck her down, her body hit the dirt, unmoving. The other two widows screamed her name. The man roared in anger, swinging his axe with deadly force. He cut through the soldier's armor, sparks flying, but when he turned, he saw the middle widow's eyes fading, blood staining her dress. She gasped with her last breath. "Protect them, protect the truth." Then her eyes closed forever. The youngest widow fell to her knees beside her, sobbing. The oldest pulled her close, tears pouring down her face. But the fight was not over. The enemy still pressed in. The man grabbed the case from the ground, holding it high. "Is this what you want?" he shouted. The soldiers froze, their eyes locked on the glowing device. "Yes," their leader said, his voice sharp. "Hand it over, and we will leave." The man's chest heaved. He looked at the widows, their faces full of grief and fear. He looked at the burning barn, at the children crying inside the house. Then he raised the case higher. "If this holds the truth, then no one shall bury it again." He smashed it against a stone. The device cracked, spilling light into the night. A projection filled the air, images of the war, soldiers not of the widow's people but of the enemy, burning villages, killing innocents. The truth blazed in the sky, undeniable. The villagers, drawn by the fire and noise, arrived at the fence. Their mouths dropped open as they saw the images. The lies they had believed shattered before their eyes. The widows were not cursed. They were victims, survivors. The soldiers roared in rage, charging to silence the truth. But the villagers, now awakened, picked up tools, torches, stones. They stormed the yard, joining the fight. Together they overwhelmed the soldiers, driving them back into the woods. The battle ended at dawn. Smoke rose from the barn. Ashes drifted in the wind. The man stood covered in blood and dust, his body trembling. The widows wept over their sister, the middle widow who had given her life. The villagers stood in silence, shame heavy on their faces. They had believed lies. They had hated without reason. And now they saw the price. The man's voice was hoarse, but strong. She died for the truth. Do not let her sacrifice be wasted. The widows clutched their children, tears soaking their cheeks. One of them whispered, "She saved us all." But even as the sun rose, casting golden light on the ruined yard, a shadow still lingered in the trees. A single soldier remained, hidden, watching, waiting. His eyes glowed red with vengeance. The fight was not over. It had only just begun. The morning after the battle was heavy with smoke and silence. The barn lay in ruins, the earth black with ash. The animals that survived huddled together in fear. The children clung to their mothers, their small eyes wide with questions they could not yet understand. The widows stood over the body of their sister, the middle widow who had given her life. Their tears fell without end. Her sacrifice cut their hearts, but her courage also gave them strength. The man stood beside them, his axe buried in the ground, his body weak from wounds, his clothes torn and burned. He looked at the villagers gathered near the fence. They did not shout now. They did not spit or curse. Instead, their faces were pale with shame. One of the villagers stepped forward, his voice low. "We were wrong." He looked at the widows, eyes full of guilt. "We called you cursed, but it was we who were blind." Another villager, the bread seller who once chased them away, lowered her head. "Forgive us. We believed lies. We forgot you were mothers like us." The oldest widow's voice shook as she answered, "Forgiveness is not ours to give. It belongs to the one who died last night." Her eyes turned to her sister's body, covered with a simple cloth. "She gave her life to show you the truth." The villagers bowed their heads, silent. For the first time, they saw the widows not as shadows but as people. The man raised, his voice tired but strong. "Her sacrifice cannot be wasted. If you still believe they are cursed, then you curse yourselves. They worked harder than any of you. They fought for this land. They bled for it. They earned the right to stay," the villagers murmured, some nodding, some still unsure, but none dared to argue. The truth they had seen in the sky the night before burned in their minds. The widows buried their sister near the edge of the field, under a tall tree where the wind whispered softly. Their children placed flowers on the fresh soil. Their small voices prayed. Their tears watered the earth. That evening, the villagers returned, but this time with tools, wood, and food. Without words, they began to help rebuild the barn, hammering, lifting, working until the stars rose. The widows watched in silence, not knowing if their hearts should trust or remain guarded. The man spoke gently to them. "They may never erase their cruelty, but even small steps matter. Let them help, for your children's sake." So the widows worked beside the villagers, their hands still trembling, their hearts still aching, but for the first time they were not alone. The youngest widow whispered to her children that night, "Your aunt died so you could live in a world where people see you as more than curses." "Never forget her," the children nodded, their eyes wet with tears. Days turned to weeks. Slowly the fields grew green again, new seeds sprouted. The barn rose stronger than before. The widows' hands healed, their backs straightened, their children laughed louder, running across the fields without fear. The villagers began to greet them when they passed. Some brought milk, others shared bread. Not all hearts changed, but enough did, and the widows felt for the first time that they belonged somewhere. The man became more than a protector. He was a friend, a brother, maybe even something deeper. His heart carried scars, but it also carried warmth for the little family he had chosen. One evening, as the sun set in gold, the oldest widow spoke softly to him. "You gave us more than food, more than land. You gave us dignity. For that, we will never leave your side." He looked at her, his eyes full of quiet pain. "I only did what was right." His voice dropped lower. "But I fear this is not the end. The soldiers who attacked, they were not all defeated." The widows froze. Their hearts tightened. "You mean more will come?" The youngest whispered. He nodded slowly, staring at the darkening horizon. "The war may be over for the world, but not for us. They want the truth buried. They will come again." Silence wrapped around them. The widows clutched their children, tighter. They had survived hunger, hate, and loss. But the thought of another battle made their souls shiver. Yet deep inside, a fire had been lit. They were no longer helpless widows. They were fighters, mothers, survivors. That night, the stars shone bright over the rebuilt barn. The wind carried the soft sound of children's laughter. But in the forest, unseen by any, a red glow shimmered between the trees. A soldier's eyes, watching, waiting, patient. The widows slept close to their children, unaware of the shadow preparing for the next storm. The man sat awake outside, axe resting against his knee. His gaze fixed on the woods, his heart whispered a promise. "As long as I breathe, they will never take you." And so began their new beginning, born from pain, lit by sacrifice, and shadowed by danger yet to come,